Floor is yours. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Good morning to everyone. Let me pull out the verses for today. Okay. Yep. So, yeah, we are in 10th canto, chapter 42nd, which is entitled as The Breaking of the Sacrificial Bow. And we'll be covering verses 23 to 27 today. So, start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So, yeah, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 42, text 23. Tayor vicharatoh svairam adityostam upeyivan Krishna Ramo vritau gopaihi purach chakatam iyatuhu. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. As they strolled about at will, the sun began to set, so they left the city with the cowherd boys and returned to the cowherd's wagon encampment. So, text 24. Gopyo mukunda vigame virahaturaya asha sata shisharita madhupurya bhuvam abhuvan sampashyatam purusha bhushana gatra lakshmim hitvetaranu chakame yanam shrihi. Translation. At the time of Mukunda's, that is Krishna's, departure from Vrindavan, the gopis had foretold that the residents of Mathura would enjoy many benedictions. And now the gopis' predictions were coming true. For those residents were gazing upon the beauty of Krishna, the jewel among men. Indeed, the goddess of fortune desired the shelter of that beauty so much that she abandoned many other men, although they worshipped her. This is text 25. Avaniktangri yugalau bhuktva kshiro pasechanam ushatushtam sukham ratrim jnatva kamsa chikirshitam. After Krishna's and Balaram's feet were bathed, the two lords ate rice with milk. Then, although knowing what Kamsa intended to do, they spent the night there comfortably. Finally, text 26 and 27. Kamsastu dhanusho bhangam rakshinam swabalasya cha vadham nishamya govinda rama vikriditam param dirgha prajagaro bhito durnimittani durmatihi bahunya achashto bhayataha mrityor dautya karani cha. Translation. Wicked Kamsa, on the other hand, was terrified, having heard how Krishna and Balaram had broken the bow and killed his guards and soldiers, all simply as a game. He remained awake for a long time, and both while awake and while dreaming, he saw many bad omens, messengers of death. Omagyanatimirandhasya jnananjanashalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahiyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानु सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम्. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for this opportunity and thank you for joining. And I hope and pray that I seek blessings from all of you so that I can speak something in the mood of service in line with the Guru Parampara and with utmost humility. Hare Krishna. So these verses didn't have any purports. So in one sense, when verses don't have purports, you have the liberty to discuss, whatever themes you want out of the verses. Of course, in line with what senior devotees have spoken and things like that. Prabhupada has spoken and Prabhupada has written based on that. But yeah, these verses didn't have any purport. So we'll see a few themes here. So first of all, we'll recap where we are within the Bhagavatam. And this is when Krishna has left Vrindavan and he's in Mathura right now. And he goes to Mathura and then he's meeting various people during his visit to Mathura. We saw that he met that the person who made garments, and he was killed by Krishna because he was proud. And then Krishna and Balram also met Sudama, the garland maker, and he was delivered. And we saw the three things that Sudama, the garland maker, asked. Right, the three things were devotional service, friendship with the devotees, compassion for all living beings, and devotional service. I believe I forget the third one, but yeah. So three things which actually encapsulate a lot of the Vaishnava motivation were asked by Sudama, the garland maker, to Krishna. And then Krishna proceeds further, and then he meets this, and we enter this chapter, and he meets this Trivakra. Okay, she's also known as Kubja, and she's a hunchback. And Krishna, we know how he puts his foot on her toe and he catches her chin and then he lifts her up. And as soon as he does that, Kubja receives a celestial form, a very beautiful celestial form. And the rasa, or the mellow, that Kubja has for Krishna is of madhurya. So she has apparent, seemingly lustful desires for Krishna, and Krishna does satisfy that later on as well. So, and then Krishna moves ahead, and then he in the episode of Kubja, I was hearing, so devotees draw this analogy that, just like Kubja was a hunchback, similarly the weight of our ego or the ahankar makes us crooked, and it makes us exploit others, claim the property of God to be our own, be the enjoyers, proprietors, the lords of all that we survey, the six anarthas, right? Lust, anger, envy, greed, pride, illusion. All these things come, and the weight of these things is so heavy that it often makes us crooked. And the only way actually to become straight again, or to regain our original consciousness, is by the mercy of Krishna. And that mercy comes, that grace of Krishna comes when we serve Krishna, and his devotees. So Krishna says in the Gita, bhaktya tvananya shakya aham evam vidorjuna jnatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. So just like Kubja, she served Krishna with whatever she had, right? We, with whatever resources we have right now, we have been serving the Kamsa like mentality within us. Right? At least I have been doing that. I am serving the Kamsa like mentality within me with whatever resources I have. And Kubja was doing a similar thing in the sense that whatever she was, the scents that she was preparing was being used in the service of Kamsa. But then she used that same thing for the pleasure of Krishna. So similarly, whatever resources we have, we might be using them for our own gratification, but then if we just use those resources in the service of Krishna, that will attract Krishna's grace. And just like Krishna straightened Kubja, he will straighten us as well. And when he does that, all we have to do is not resist. And once that happens, once Krishna decides to straighten us up, then life becomes very blissful. The straightening might be a little troublesome, but post that, everything is good. So I also need a lot of straightening. So please pray for me. That was Kubja. I heard a class by Radhanath Swami, and he drew these lessons out of the episode with Kubja. And then Krishna and Balaram continue, and then they go to this arena where the bow is kept, a huge bow. I didn't look into the background of how that bow came about to be, but there is this huge bow, and it's nobody's able to break it or lift it, and Krishna just goes effortlessly, moves everybody, takes the bow and breaks it into two. I mean, strings it and then breaks it into two, and then once that happens, the guards that are present there, Kamsa's guards, they order that Krishna be killed. Grab him, kill him. And then we see how Krishna takes one half of the bow and Balaram takes the other half of the bow, and just with that, they just decimate all the soldiers. And they do it very playfully. They do it very vikriditam is the word used. They do it very playfully, and we'll see why that is important. In the subsequent sections. But yeah, anyway, in these set of verses that we are covering today, then Krishna and Balaram, after they kill all these soldiers, the bow is broken. They come back to the camp where the cowherd men are staying, and then they have dinner, they have their meal, and then they rest comfortably. And we also saw that how it is said that the predictions made by the gopis that the residents of Mathura will all their desires will be fulfilled because they'll get the darshan of the jewel amongst men, that is Krishna. That prediction becomes true because the residents of Mathura are seeing all these wonderful things happen, and just after a few days, I think that's just the next day, they are going to see that Kamsa is going to be killed, and Kamsa will be killed, and things like that. Chanura Mushtika, it's a nice section again. So gopis have predicted that they had predicted when Krishna left Vrindavan along with Akrura, they had predicted that the residents of Mathura are very fortunate now. They'll get a lot of pleasure by witnessing Krishna and his activities. And that's what happens. And the verse mentions that their predictions now are coming true. So that's a prediction made by the gopis. And it is also said that Lord Krishna is served by, he's the object of love for even the goddess of fortune. She has rejected many other men who approached her, and she's constantly trying to get into the Leela of the Lord. And this is also mentioned in the Brahma Samhita, where Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrama Sevyamanam. In the spiritual world, Krishna is being worshipped by Sahasrashata Lakshmis, like thousands and millions of Lakshmis he's being worshipped by. And that is his greatness, that the madhurya of Krishna, the sweetness of Krishna, even attracts the Lakshmi Devi, who is actually the wife of the most opulent Lord Narayan or Vishnu. But of course, Krishna and Vishnu are one and the same, and but she's attracted to this sweetness aspect of the Lord, and she wants to enter into the Ras Leela. Again, that it's a whole story which we'll not get into right now. Why she couldn't get into the Ras Leela and things like that. So that this happens, and then Krishna and Balaram, they have their meal and they rest peacefully. But then the next verse says, on the other hand, the situation of Kamsa. And now this is where it is really interesting. So Kamsa is a very powerful person, and he has attained so much power and wealth and whatever, mainly power, that even the demigods are fearful of him, and they are fearful of him, and then he can get whatever he wants. He has everything. He has people at his beck and call ready to serve him and everything, but still he has a fear. And why he has the fear is because there was this Akashvani, or there was this a celestial announcement when he was driving Vasudeva and Devaki to their home. There was a celestial announcement saying that you will be killed by the 8th child of your sister. And that actually made Kamsa very, very, very anxious. So although he had everything, but that one thing made him very anxious. So it's like no amount of material pleasures will satisfy us. The lesson is, and even if there are hundreds of things that satisfy us, that gratify us, if there is even one fear, that fear will kind of overshadow all the pleasures that we have. That is the nature of the material world. And this is similarly, this is exactly what happened with Kamsa. So that one fear that the 8th child of your sister is going to kill you, will be the cause of your destruction, that made him so anxious that whatever love he had for his sister, that just vanished. And we know how he was going to kill her right there, but then by the I guess quick-mindedness of Vasudev, Devaki was saved. And then but with the truce that whichever kid is born, they'll just offer it to Kamsa. And Kamsa did kill all the 6 children, and 7 children. And then the 8th, of course, we know Krishna was transported to Vrindavan, and how Yogamaya was there, and then she tells that the person who is going to kill you is already born. That baby is born elsewhere. So he's always anxious, and that is what. And in that anxiety, actually, what he's doing is he's constantly meditating on Krishna. Right? International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Prabhupada named the organization. Now, the aim of whatever spiritual practices we do is, whatever vidhis we do is twofold. We have seen this before as well. Twofold, that is, always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So we need to become conscious of Krishna. And if you see from an external perspective, then yes, even Kamsa was conscious of Krishna. And it is mentioned here in this section, in the 28th verse, and even in one of the verses in the 2nd chapter of the 10th canto, that how Kamsa was so conscious of Krishna that he would constantly think of Krishna. His eyes are closed, he would see Krishna. His eyes are open, he would see Krishna. He, in the reflection of the the dishes that he had, he would see Krishna. Everywhere he would see Krishna. So it was like he was totally conscious of Krishna, right? But is that the right way to become conscious of Krishna? Is what we'll see today. We'll try to kind of analyze how it is. So there is this levels of depth in Krishna consciousness. And I mean, one thing we of course saw, that Kamsa was very powerful, yet he had fear. And there are 2 more examples that I heard about people who, when they heard that their death was imminent, how did they react to it? So we have Parikshit Maharaj, right? He was told that he was going to die in 7 days. And what did he do? He didn't go on a rampage trying to, destroy the cause of his destruction. So he just took shelter of the Lord, sat and heard the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the other example is about Khatwanga Maharaj. Khatwanga Maharaj is another, this is an interesting story. So what happens is Khatwanga Maharaj is a very great king on the earth, and he's very powerful. He's a great warrior. And once there is a battle between the demigods and the demons, and Khatwanga Maharaj uh, decides to assist the demigods. And then he fights on the side of the demigods for many thousands and thousands of years. He fights very skillfully and finally defeats the demons. And the demigods are very pleased with Khatwanga Maharaj's service. So they say, they ask Khatwanga Maharaj, so what do you want? You have done such nice service. So what do you want? Then Khatwanga Maharaj is a pure devotee. He says, I really don't want anything. I'll just focus my mind on Krishna now. But then they insist, no, tell us what you want. Then Khatwanga Maharaj says, okay, if you want to offer me something, then tell me when I'm going to die. And then the demigods looked into the celestial books, the diaries and whatnot, their records, their database. And then they looked at that and then they said, you'll die in one moment. And Khatwanga Maharaj was like, okay. Now, if Khatwanga Maharaj, when he was told that he was going to die in one moment, he didn't say that, hey, come on, man, I worked so hard for you. And is this what I get in return? No, that's not what he said. So the response that he gave was very nice. So at least I have this one moment. So let me focus in that one moment on Krishna. And he focused on Krishna in that one moment. And Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram, Krishna says in the Gita. At the end of your life, if one thinks of Krishna, one gets liberated, one goes to Krishna. So that's what Khatwanga Maharaj achieved. He attained the highest state of spiritual perfection in that one moment. So like that. And then Kamsa, when he was told that he was going to die, he had minimum 8 years to live, right? Minimum 8 years to live, because the child is in the womb for 9 months. And so minimum around 8 years he had, definitely. But then within those 8 years, what did he do? As opposed to Parikshit Maharaj and Khatwanga Maharaj, Kamsa just tried to find the cause of his death and tried to destroy. He sent so many demons. He sent so many demons to kill, find that baby who is born in that region, Mathura, Vrindavan region, and kill that baby. And then it was so ghastly that he sent these demons and they started killing all the babies born. Let's not leave any stone unturned. Whatever babies are born, let's kill them. So this was Kamsa's reaction, right? So, and in this verse, the 26th and 27th verse, we see that his anxiety was amplified by the fact that Krishna broke the bow and Krishna and Balaram killed all the soldiers just effortlessly as a game, Vikriditam. So it would have been one thing if, oh, Krishna and Balaram are like really struggling to, defeat these soldiers, and somehow, in basketball or in, there is a close call and one team wins, like, right? So there is like 98 and 100 points in a basketball game. It was not like that for Krishna and Balaram. They won something like 100 and 0, something like that. So that actually amplified his anxiety. Because if Krishna and Balaram would have had a close victory, then at least he would have some hope that, okay, my soldiers are less powerful than me, and with them he had a close call. So at least with me, they will be defeated. But no, they were effortlessly killed by Krishna and Balaram. So that amplified his anxiety. And but anyway, so coming back to this, and this amplification of his anxiety is what caused constant remembrance of Krishna by him. And this is where we'll see levels of depth in Krishna consciousness. So yes, Krishna consciousness is on one level our action. Action means what we do, like the externals of what we do, the actions or, the rituals that we perform or whatever it may be, the services that we do, the physical services that we do, that people see and things like that. That is one level of depth of Krishna consciousness. That is important, definitely. The deeper is thought, okay? What are we thinking about while doing the actions in Krishna consciousness? It might happen that we might be externally performing some action, but internally we are just thinking of material desires. And this happens during japa a lot. Externally we are performing the action of chanting japa, and this happens with me a lot actually, and I'm thinking exactly when I sit to chant japa, I get all sorts of insights. I get all sorts of, that problem that I have to solve at work, that can be done like this. Right? So my thought, my action is on the level of Krishna consciousness, but my thought is completely astray. So that is another, level of Krishna consciousness. Like action is one, and then deeper than that is thought. What are we thinking? Right, okay. And there is one more thing that is deeper than thought also, which is motivations. So what is my motivation for thinking and acting the way I do? So that is why we are thinking about what we are thinking about. So action, thought, and motivation. So these are the levels of depth in Krishna consciousness. And of course, the ideal thing is that all these things should be favorable. The action should be favorable to Krishna consciousness. That our thoughts should be about Krishna and his devotees. Our motivations should also be to please Krishna and his devotees. So that is the ideal thing. But then it is so interesting that the magnanimity of Krishna, how merciful Krishna is that he, even if one of these things is okay, he will reward us. That is the mercy of Krishna. And we'll see some examples of that. So action, tick, thought, tick, motivation, tick. Okay, all pure devotees that we see. These are just some pictures, but there are so many. Ananta Koti, Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, we say, right? So the number of pure devotees are unlimited. So pure devotees are examples where the action, thought, and motivation are all about Krishna, right? The next example is action is kind of favorable to Krishna. Thought is not, motivation is also not. And the example is of Putna, right? She did, so it's not that she always thought of Krishna, and at least the scriptures don't say that she was always meditating on Krishna. The scriptures do say that Putna was actually Bali Maharaj's sister in her previous life, and when Vaman Dev came, Vaman Dev was a very nice, very very sweet child, very good looking and very 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 cute. And when she saw Vaman Dev, she thought that, oh, this child is so nice, let me become his mother. So she had that desire to become his mother. But then when Vaman Dev came and he took everything from Bali Maharaj, that same emotion now turned negative. She said, this child is such a deceptive child, let me kill him. So both the desires were fulfilled. And she was born as Putana in her next life. So she came with the intention of killing Krishna, but at the same time, she offered her breast, the poison smeared breast to Krishna to suck milk with the intention that he will also suck the poison and die. So in this way, both her desires were fulfilled. But then you can say in one sense, her action was Krishna conscious in the sense that she at least had that little thing of motherly thing that, okay, I'll offer Krishna my breast for him to get the milk, right? But the thought were not there. The thoughts were not there, and the motivation was definitely not there. The motivation was to kill Krishna. But still, Krishna delivered her. He gave her the position of a dhatri, or the nanny, I guess. Yeah, nanny is the yeah, that's right. Yeah, dhatri is a nanny in the spiritual world. So he gave this position, this great position of a nanny to Putana in the spiritual world. So this famous verse, Aho Bhakyam Sthanakalakutam. This is very famous because this verse, Aho Bhakyam Sthanakalakutam Jigham Sayapa Yayad Apya Asadavi Lebe Gatim Dharatya Uchitam Tatonyam Kamva Dayalum Sharanam Rajema. So this verse is very significant because there are two great personalities in our sampradaya or in the spiritual circles who got transformed with with this verse. So one is of course Shukadev Goswami when he leaves his parents Vyasdev and his wife and he goes into the forest. Vyasdev instructs some of his disciples to go to, when they go to the forest, just to chant the Bhagavatam. And when he hears this, when Shukadev Goswami hears them, these disciples of Vyasdev, reciting this particular verse of Krishna delivering Putana, he becomes transformed. They recite two verses that really transform him. One of them is this. The other one is within our Sampradaya, Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Pundarik Vidyanidhi was a very aristocratic devotee, kind of. So he had a lot of opulence. And Gadadhar Pandit was one other devotee. I think Mukunda Dutt was going to take Gadadhar Pandit to meet Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And then when Gadadhar Pandit sees Pundarik Vidyanidhi, that he's opulent, he's eating pan, like betel leaves. And then, there are people fanning him and everything. Gadadhar Pandit thinks, hey, what is this man? He's just a person gratifying his senses and things like that. So Gadadhar Pandit gets this mistaken notion, seeing the externals. And then I think it's Vasudev Dutt or Mukunda Dutt, I forget who it was. But then this other devotee says, okay, you think like this, Gadadhar Pandit, let me show you what this person is. And then he chants this verse, Aho Bhakyam Sthana Kalakutam. As soon as Pundarik Vidyanidhi hears this verse, he jumps up and starts dancing in ecstasy. And is looking at this, Gadadhar Pandit is like, wow, this is a pure devotee. And then Gadadhar Pandit finally becomes, takes Diksha from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And of course, Gadadhar Pandit is Radharani, and Pundarik Vidyanidhi is Vrishabhanu Maharaj in Krishna Leela. And so that is Putana. Action was kind of there, thought not there, motivations not there. But Krishna still rewarded Putana. And then the next is action is actually against Krishna. Thought is in Krishna, but not favorable, and motivation is not favorable at all. So that is, the examples here are Kamsa, Shishupal, and Kaurava warriors. So as we see here, Kamsa is constantly thinking of Krishna, constantly meditating on Krishna. So in one sense, he is Krishna conscious, right? But that Krishna consciousness is not anukul, or that is not favorable towards the service of Krishna. Similarly, Shishupal, he's always thinking of, how should I criticize Krishna? And we know how when he 100th criticism, 100th time when he criticizes Krishna, Krishna kills him and he chops his head off. And we know it's the description comes in the Bhagavatam in the subsequent sections when it says that when Shishupal was killed, the spirit soul, that spiritual spark actually went up and went to the heavens and beyond. So Krishna delivered them as well. Even the Kaurava warriors, it is said that whichever warrior died, be they on the Pandava side or on the Kaurava side in the battle of Kurukshetra, they all attained liberation because they were seeing Krishna when they died. So they had the thought of Krishna. Their actions were not favorable, their motivation was not favorable, right? But they had that thought of Krishna. And Prabhupada clearly writes, of course, one might think that, hey, nice, so Krishna rewards everyone. So let me just, do any action, let me have any motivation, let me just think of Krishna. Even that is difficult actually, if we think about it. To think unfavorably towards Krishna at the level of Kamsa is actually not so easy. So, but anyway, Kamsa did that. But Prabhupada mentions that our bhakti has to be in a favorable mood towards Krishna. So that famous verse which comes again and again from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that Rupa Goswami wrote, Anya Bhilashita Shunyam Dhyana Karma Dhyanavritam Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttama. So our bhakti, Uttama bhakti, is that which is Anushilanam, Anukulena, favorable towards Krishna, and Anushilanam. We'll see the meanings of those words. And one more thing that might bewilder us is Krishna is delivering everybody. He's delivering the demons, he's delivering the gopis, he's delivering the pure devotees like Prahlad, Dhruva, everyone. So one might be confused, hey, how is this? And that is Prabhupada addresses this particular dilemma in one of his sections in Nectar of Devotion, chapter 15. So this is what he writes. There may be some difficulty in understanding that both the gopis and Kamsa achieved the same goal. So this point should be clearly understood because the attitudes of Kamsa and Shishupal were different from that of the gopis. Although in all these cases, the focus is on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all of the devotees are elevated to the spiritual world, there is still a distinction between these two classes of souls. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the absolute truth is one, and that he is manifested as impersonal Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here is a spiritual distinction. Although Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are the same and one absolute truth, devotees like Kamsa or Shishupal could attain only to the Brahman effulgence. They could not have realization of Paramatma or Bhagavan. That is the distinction. So Krishna's magnanimity is there in the sense that he gives liberation to these demons as well, but he doesn't give them the position of associating with him in the spiritual world. So actually Krishna is independent. He could do that. He could do that for someone because he knows past, present, and future. He knows the history of everyone. So he could do that. He's independent, supremely independent, Swarat. So just like in the case of Putana, he saw that little act of motherly thing, and then he gave her the position of a nanny in the spiritual world. He could do that. If Krishna wishes, then he can do anything, right? But it's up to Krishna. But these demons who were totally against Krishna, Krishna gives them the Brahman realization and not Paramatma or Bhagavan. And of course, once they attain to Brahman, then they'll see that there is no activity there. There is no bliss there. There is just eternal existence. And then they'll come back and probably, purify themselves more and attain to the Bhagavan aspect of the Lord. And then finally, conclusion. So we saw that Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. So Anukulena is favorable and Krishna Anushilanam is cultivation of service in relationship to Krishna. So that is what Rupa Goswami writes is true bhakti, is Uttama bhakti. So although we do see these examples of Kamsa and everyone, we should understand that that is not the way we are supposed to perform bhakti. We are supposed to perform bhakti in this way, favorable to the cultivation of service in relationship to Krishna. And the other thing is, of course, Krishna's magnanimity. We saw that all these categories Krishna has delivered. He delivers our pure devotees. That is definitely there. He delivered Putana. He delivered Kamsa, Shishupal, Kaurava warriors, etc. And here, this one of the purports that Prabhupada writes, Lord Krishna accepted the motherhood of Putana because she pretended to be an affectionate mother, allowing Krishna to suck her breast. The Lord accepts the least qualification of the living entity and awards him the highest reward. That is the standard of his character. Therefore, who but the Lord can be the ultimate shelter? So the Lord accepts the least qualification of the living entity and awards him the highest reward. Who comes to mind when we read this? He takes the least and awards the highest. That is Lord Chaitanya, my dear friends. So many examples. So yeah, but anyway, that's what I had to cover. And yes, Krishna Deva Prabhu, Kamsa could have used 8 years to become a devotee. Definitely, that is true. Yep. So that's it from me. So if there are any questions, comments, feedback, I'll try to take.
Hare Krishna. Fantastic class, just pouring out nectar. We hear about, just to reflect something you said, that Kamsa was fearful. He had usurped the throne, the position of power, prominence, and he was fearful. And we were reading recently that we cannot become fearless unless we totally surrender to Krishna. Kamsa, he grabbed a lot of, position that was due to Krishna. But even if we keep a little position, like it says, there's a verse in the Bhagavatam, anyone who has more than he needs will always be in anxiety due to animals and birds, relatives and friends, thieves and rogues, government taxation, even the inevitable time factor. He'll even be afraid of his own self, that somehow or other he's going to lose something, because he has more than he needs. And so we may not be on the position of Kamsa, making ourselves into be a king, but if even in small ways, if there's anything at all that keeps us attached, thinking this is mine. Devananda has this song, you got more than you need. My God, what were you thinking? You got more than you need, take a good look at yourself. You got more than you need, my God, what were you thinking? You got more than you need, don't you know there's a price to pay? So the Bible says something, if you have two coats, give one away. You know, who has more than he needs will be in anxiety because it's not our quota. And besides not being fearless, we actually won't be able to love. So the incentive to pure devotional service is that our capacity to love and our capacity to be free from fear will be there if we fully surrender to Krishna. At least that's what Prabhupada told us. Okay, we were praying to Prabhupada what to say if we could contribute today, so I feel like that's what Prabhupada was asking us to say. Well, glories to Srila Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
I had the realization of this when I moved recently. I changed my bhajan kutir recently, and somehow the movers that I had hired, they were cancelled. They didn't come, and I had to move everything on my own. And I really understood, like Maharaj said in that class about Kubja's weight, the weight of her things. So similarly, I could feel that anxiety because of having too many things. Because I remember when I was a student, if I had to move somewhere, just pack everything, book one cab, everything would fit into that one cab. That's it, go to the new place. But now, wow, yeah, I had that very strong realization this time. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu, you raise your hand.
Haribol, I'll try to make this quick. We're close to the opening, the conch. Speaking of the conch, Krishna went to war even as a child. And this was due to Kamsa putting out the order for the death of children, all the children. And so Krishna had to act because whatever thou does to the least of these innocents, thou also does unto me, Krishna says. So we have very many examples, whether it would be the Pharaoh in Egypt killing all the firstborn male children in order to stop Moses from coming in, or Herod, the king of Israel, killing all the firstborn children to stop Jesus from being born, to several other examples. But could you tell us, Prabhu, practically speaking, we have these atrocities going on. What do we do about how we feel about genocide that is happening as I speak at this time? That we're devotees, and practically speaking, I'm not going to read about Kamsa and worried about having two coats or having more than I need on my table. I'm going to worry about what's going on in my name with my tax dollars in the killing of innocents. Don't we think we ought to bring it home to what is actually going on at this time? That all of this is Krishna's, Leela, and maybe perhaps we should be praying for Krishna to come in some form or another to end what is so blatantly obvious before us, which is a great evil that is taking place. And I don't care which side you're on in regards, if you have any mind or heart whatsoever, you can see the truth. The truth exposes itself. So do you have any suggestions for what we can do as devotees? And how does prayer work in this?
That's a sad situation that we are all in the material world, and definitely. And this question is asked many times, that so much atrocity is going on in the world today, and what are we as devotees supposed to do about it? There are various things, of course. A devotee is paradukha dukhi. A devotee is he suffers when he sees the sufferings of others. So that is the nature of a devotee. So he has that compassion. But at the same time, there is the consideration of one's own ability, ability to make a difference, how capable we are. And we need to have a realistic picture. Again, I'm not saying, oh, we should look at our capability. That is not an excuse for saying that I'm not capable of doing anything in this regard, so let me just be happy and peaceful. No, it's not that. But at the same time, we can't. Now there are so many, like take for example, the current attacks that are happening, the war that is happening between Israel and Hamas, right? So many innocents are getting killed there, but how? So what can we as devotees do? Should we go take guns and fight from one side? That is definitely not a practical thing to do, right? But at the same time, we should not even sit and watch passively. I feel we can pray for them. That is one thing we can do. Or if we have more resources, then we can, they have these funds, fund collections that happen to help the affected people. We can use our resources in that way. That we can do. Again, there is no limit to that, right? We can help in so many other ways. And yeah, again, it's not that somebody doesn't have to take a gun and try and protect them. If somebody is capable of doing that, they can certainly do it. But most of us are not capable of doing it. So we have to be, in one sense, real like that, and then take a stand, I guess. Yeah, it's a tough question, and it really pains the heart of everyone to witness these things happening. Yeah, but if anyone else has any other thoughts on this, please feel free to express.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Be real, Bhima Prabhu. Be real. We know you're a good person. Thank you, Jagannath Gopal. Wonderful class. Nice seeing everybody. We need more bhakti beauties turning on their cameras. Krishna Daya, check it out. Is that Krishna Daya Jr.? Bhakti beauty.
Relative.
Hare Krishna.
Be real.
We're standing before the Lord, eager to be seen and to see the Lord. Thank you very much, Adipusha Prabhu, for the darshan. Any final comments? This is the afterglow. We're going to take 2-3 minutes. Any final remarks? Any questions? Amita on the train.
Anyone wants to chime into what Bhima Prabhu asked, please do. I don't know whether my answer indicated that I'm suggesting running away from the problem, but definitely not. That's not my intention. But yeah, please shed your thoughts on that.
Mike shared. As for the last question, I think prayer is very powerful. And Bhima says that was the answer he was looking for. Yeah, you want to make sure that the answer you're giving to Bhima Prabhu is the one he's looking for.
Can you take this, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, Bhima question every day. He's ready to go to war. And the Prophet Muhammad said the real war, the real battle, is between my own mind. Just like Hiranyakasipu conquered the entire universe, and Prahlad said to him, my dear father, you have no enemy except your own uncontrolled mind. So all of us have a role to play. Certainly, we know Akrura, he had a role. He drove Krishna there. He didn't personally smash Kamsa, but he played his part. So when we say, Lord, I'm yours, I want to be part of this remedy, and what does Shastra say? Kaler Doshani De Rajan. That in age of Kali, there's so many faults. There's an ocean of faults. Who can doubt it? There's an ocean of faults. And then it says, Kirtana Deva Krishna Sya Mukta Sangha Parangrita. Just chant the holy name. Prabhupada said, chant the holy name. There's no shortage of anything but Krishna consciousness. So if we chant our rounds and we throw ourselves into propagating the holy name of the Lord, according to Shastra, that will solve all problems. And we might be called to go there with a gun, or we might be called to fight with the beads in the hand and use the weapon of prasadam and the holy name. But if we're willing, Krishna will show us what our role to play is in this great battle, right? It's wonderful that a person feels in their heart, oh, people are suffering, what should I do? But if I'm just wasting my resources by buying a bunch of coats rather than throwing myself into the propagation of the holy name, we may have the sentiment, but we're not really putting our money where our mouth is, right? So give ourselves, and then, because Krishna is already arranging everything perfectly, and certainly people who are doing something that are misdirected, nobody gets away with anything. Anyway, that's what I've heard of the Srila Prabhupada. If we're really concerned, give ourselves to devotional service. Krishna will use. That's what I heard. I don't know. I gotta go. We'll go to Prabhupada.
Yeah, the real is the battle with the false self. You get a broom, Bhima, hold your head close to the phone. This is the broom, this is the shoe.
Ananda Bihari, you get away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
I did have a quick question, Prabhu. Okay, we know that Prabhupada, and I find it conspicuous by its absence. Prabhupada very rarely, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe I didn't do enough reading, but Prabhupada very rarely mentioned the Vietnam War, which of course was an atrocity. It was a war. These soldiers, these young men who were drafted into battle, tens of thousands died. And as we could see, as in almost every war, at least contemporary war, it was all for nothing. It was all for nothing. Whether it be Iraq, Afghanistan, and now what's going on to the poor Palestinians, it's all for nothing. And so the question is Prabhupada really was, never really mentioned the Vietnam War. At least I didn't come up. What is your understanding about that? And I realize that, was it Prabhupada or Bhaktisiddhanta who, when the bombs were dropping during World War II, went about making prasad in the kitchen while everybody else was yelling? Now, that may be for ourselves, but does a devotee allow himself to get stirred up and to make a decision, even after praying to Krishna, to make a decision to kind of come out from that transcendental bubble that everything's perfect and nothing should affect me? And if tens of thousands of people, innocent people, are getting slaughtered in a basically shooting fish in a barrel, that we shouldn't say anything, that we shouldn't make this knowledge be known, that we should chant Hare Krishna, of course. But when do we have an intifada of this unease that mounts when we pay attention to what's going on around us? There was the battle of Kurukshetra, and we see that Krishna's dearest friends were the soldiers on the battlefield, and Krishna said, fight. When Karna was off his chariot and Arjuna wanted to play fair, Krishna said, put an arrow through his neck. He didn't play fair with Draupadi. So where do we draw that line between the transcendence of Prabhupada and people who see that everything's perfect, and those who are actually disturbed by what they see when innocents have to die needlessly?
Jagannath, Gopal, unmute yourself. Unmute, please.
Sorry, yeah. So I think Prabhupada does mention about Vietnam. I would have to look it up, but in some conversations, letters, he does mention that, but I'll have to confirm. But at the same time, I remember the example of the Goswamis of Vrindavan. So the Goswamis of Vrindavan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Acharyas that time there was a lot of destruction that was happening of temples and things like that by the Mughals. So, but we hardly see in their texts, them mentioning about that. So now, is it to say that they were so transcendental that they didn't care? Well, I don't know. Definitely, it's not that they did not care, but then their focus was to propagate Krishna consciousness, and that's what was for Prabhupada as well. His focus was to propagate Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada, so this is very interesting. In the initial years of my bhakti, when I would read in Prabhupada's book that, oh, Krishna consciousness is the solution to all problems, I was like, what? Is this even practical to say? How is Krishna consciousness a solution to all problems? Krishna consciousness is a solution to war. Krishna consciousness is a solution to all kinds of violence. Krishna consciousness is a solution to all kinds of misery. And then I was like, wait, is this really practical? Right? But then there is a depth to that statement in the sense that when one becomes Krishna conscious, he develops this attitude of Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvalokameshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatma Mam Shantim Richati. So he sees Krishna as the proprietor of everything. He sees Krishna as the beneficiary of all sacrifices. He sees Krishna as the friend of all living entities. And that's why the devotee also becomes a friend of all living entities. So in that sense, when one develops this attitude of seeing everything in relation to Krishna, then that is like an inner transformation that results in outer transformation, is what I later understood, is what Prabhupada meant by that. Because at the face value, saying that Krishna consciousness is a solution to all problems seems really impractical. I mean, what do you want to say that Krishna consciousness is a solution to the kids that are being killed there? In one of the terrorists who got arrested, this rascal, he says that we heard kids crying and we kept shooting till it became silent. I mean, what, man? I mean, I'm getting stirred up right now as I say this, but it's very bad. But yeah, again, as I said, as far as Prabhupada is concerned,
Get a new car. Yeah. Oh, I thought I saw you driving something.
Somebody is not muted.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think it's not not wrong to get stirred up, and definitely as we already mentioned, prayer is very potent, and we have to see what we can do. But definitely, if we don't get stirred up, then sometimes it won't impel us to act. So definitely, getting stirred up is not a problem. Mm. But as far as Prabhupada mentioning about wars, I feel he had a different focus in mind, and the focus was to give Krishna consciousness to the world, and that is what he would emphasize in all his books.
That was the subject of his initial conversation with his own guru, right?
Of course, yeah, yeah.
About the British rule. Should we first throw them out and then have? And what was the answer that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati took?
Yeah,
That
again, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said something that again, which could be seemingly impractical. He said that Krishna consciousness is the solution to everything. Governments keep coming and going, but there is the urgent need. The most urgent need is for Krishna consciousness. One who was in that situation in the freedom struggle of India. For such a person, it might be impractical. How can you say that Krishna consciousness is more urgent than getting freedom? And that's what Prabhupada also felt. And how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur defeated Prabhupada, that he said governments keep coming and going. These things keep happening in the material world. It's not a place for a gentleman to be. But when one is Krishna consciousness, or one is in Krishna consciousness, there is this whole wave of internal transformation, and that internal transformation will result in external purification, external transformation as well. So once one environmental minister asked Radhanath Swami, "You sadhus are escapists. You guys just preach about bhakti, you preach about spirituality, but what are you doing for the environment? Practically, what are you doing for the environment?" The environmental minister asked Radhanath Swami this in an airport. And then Radhanath Swami mentioned that, "Madam, the external destruction of the environment is there because there is internal turmoil that is going on. Because internally people are impelled by greed, internally people are impelled with this hoarding tendency. That is the reason it manifests as external harm to the environment. But when we sadhus, we try to preach the message of God, we try to get people rid of this greed inside them, and that will eventually also contribute. That is what will contribute to the external improvement. Because we might do something, we might do a patchwork solution to something, but then again, because that internal greed is still there, it will still come out in the form of external destruction, external hoarding or greed or whatever. But once that is addressed internally, then other things will fall in place, is what Maharaj's answer was to this lady. But again, environment is a different issue, but this is more severe that we are talking, something more severe that we are talking about. People getting killed, kids getting killed, and But yeah, sorry, I maybe I got stirred up, but I don't mind getting stirred up. This is the right cause to get stirred up. But as far as Prabhupada and the Acharyas go, they had a focus to give Krishna, and they might have done something practically to alleviate the suffering during their times, but at least it's not there in their writings. So
thank you, Jagannath. Thanks, Bhima Prabhu.
So to sum it up, it's chant Hare Krishna or praise the Lord, and then pass the ammunition.
Yeah, praise the Lord, pass the ammunition, and also do something practically if you can. So
yeah, I think prayer. I mean, look, we're kind of stuck. What are we gonna do? Am I gonna jump on a plane and go get bombed myself? But I feel like we should not at least turn our hearts away from the world, because and this does what you said, Prabhu. It really did help inspire me to understand that when we chant Hare Krishna, even alone in our japa, it isn't about our own liberation. It's about possibly begging Krishna to engage us in his service so that we may help others. And of course, we may help one or two people, but that one or two people may help one or two other people. And so thus it spreads. We have to, I guess, be humble enough to understand that if we can spread love of God, then all this hate and this greed and anger and lust, which is the foundation of it all, it has to start one person at a time. And by doing that, as Prabhupada did, as an acharya, everybody always felt loved around Prabhupada, that deep, 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 soulful love that he was willing to give his life for us, and so many other acharyas, even my own spiritual master, Radhanath Maharaj. I feel that. And that one person who spent time, teaching me how to pray to Krishna properly and how to act in front of Krishna properly, hopefully will change myself, and then hopefully one day I'll be in a position to help spread and pass that along. And maybe that's how we do it, one person at a time, one heart at a time, where we can just let all this stuff go, and so that we don't have to see this hell on earth anymore. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for bringing up these sentiments in me when you were speaking so very soberly and thoughtfully about everything that was going on. I found it very curiouser and curiouser, as Alice said in Wonderland, that it seems that whenever a great manifestation of Krishna is coming soon to present himself in this world, the demons go about killing the innocent. And I, as I mentioned at the beginning of my question, in the histories of mankind, in all the scriptures, we have that point where the demons just go too far and Krishna comes. And so I pray for that, because he's going to need somebody to clean up after his horse. And I've been training all my life to clean up after horses. So I'll take care of Krishna's horse. Krishna will take care of these problems. Hare Krishna.
Horse.
Yes. Dhanavata. I even looked up the name of Kalki's horse is Dhanavata. So I can't wait to clean Dhanavata's stall. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Sharmila has very nicely summarized the whole thing. Hare Krishna. Internal transformation within everyone is needed to bring about external transformation in the outside world. Thank you, Prabhu Ji. Thank you, Sharmila. Thank you, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, and everyone who participated in this class. One class at a time, one person at a time, one word at a time, one act of kindness at a time will add up. Srila Prabhupada made more for environmentalism and vegetarianism and spirituality than all these peace conferences and all these activists and put together. Srila Prabhupada made more by giving us the process, by giving us this culture. So let's all practice one day at a time. Thanks, everyone. Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, especially you. You gave such a wonderful class on such a short notice. Thank you. You're a surrendered soul for sure. Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Love you all. Haribol. Have a good day.